Okay, MOvember, day 1, 2020. So I'm going to do a bunch of videos as usual. Last couple of years I've done some videos each night just on themes and tips and tools for recovery. I get involved in MOvember because it's a chance to talk about men's health, and I like to focus on mental health and addictions. And so I will also this time be continuing the theme of focusing on the effects of developmental trauma and different things we need to probably learn to stay well and to get well and to look at not just a post-traumatic stress disorder but a post-traumatic stress recovery. So tonight in this room, it's I've got chairs all around me and I have people joining me on the big screen behind this camera. I do work on this book. It's Breaking Free by Mellodys, which is a companion to Facing Codependence. Now, Pia came along at the end of the codependence movement, which really was life-changing and addiction treatment changing at its time, but her information was much more around developmental trauma than it was about codependency or the traditional view of what co-addiction was about, and sometimes gets connected to it. Robert Weiss, in his book Prodependence, certainly made that distinction that Pia Mellodys really should have called it something else. And I think at the time, trying to get anything published on this subject matter, it probably made good sense to publish it under the word codependency. But whenever I describe this, I certainly talk about it as developmental trauma disorder, and that this is a program that can help you with that. So she said 3 things need to happen in the recovery of developmental trauma disorder. One is that we need to come out of denial of what happened to us. So break through the walls of denial around suppression, repression, and disassociation, and in our adult life, confront denial, delusion, and memory loss. That is the first section. The second section says, well, now that we've experienced that, we're largely acting out a whole lot of observable symptoms in our adult life, and that has relational issues. So we need to come to terms with that and come out of denial of that. And the third thing is to come out of denial of our need for recovery. So that includes developing skills in 5 areas. One is self-esteem, personal boundaries, knowing and developing our own sense of spirituality and reality, and that we need to work on our dependency issues, and that we need to look at how we moderate and age-appropriate relationships, how I can moderate and appropriate the way I express myself and how I receive the expression of others. So tonight we look at self-esteem. For a while now, I've also been involving, when I look at self-esteem, the work of Kristin, Neff, and Christopher Germer, who wrote the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, and I run groups just on this alone. But I take Kristin Neff's point of view that self-esteem can be quite competitive in our social media and very public cyber citizen age. And so this really does help us work on radical self-acceptance and to learn to have a new language of kindness towards us. Now, I didn't pull the book down, but I also used the work of Pete Walker around shrinking our inner and outer critic and knowing what trauma type we are. And so in this group, those 3 books really are the foundation of the work. But just for the purpose of this evening, what I'm going to do is quickly name some of the areas that Pia says that we need to look at in regards to our self-esteem. So I'll just pull that up and then we'll have it, because group is not far from starting. Here we are. So the information that she has at the beginning of this is simply this. She goes, healthy self-esteem is the internal experience of your own preciousness, awareness from inside yourself that you have worth. This worth is separate from anything you do, how you look, and what other people in your life say or do about you. An essential component of recovery from codependence is learning a sense of your own value as a person. So if you didn't get this, we've already established this at the front of this book, if we were devalued either directly or indirectly. And so these exercises are to help you develop a sense of self-esteem neither lower or higher than anyone else. So she asked you to review the literature in this book. I always think the best way to read Facing Codependence is through the suggested reading in Breaking Free. But she guides us there. But largely, these following paragraphs sum that up. As codependents we experience, and I would say for codependents, as developmentally traumatized people, we experience either low or non-existent self-esteem or arrogance and grandiosity. As recovery begins, we have a sense of moving from whichever inappropriate level of esteem we experience towards the middle. At first, this often feels like we're getting worse. When moving from low self-esteem to healthy self-esteem, you may fear you're actually getting arrogant. When moving from arrogance to grandiosity to a more appropriate level of self-esteem, you may think you are losing power or getting worse by becoming weak or hopeless. At this point, you need to remind yourself that this movement is normal for recovery. You are making progress when you feel your level of self-worth either rising or dropping as you move towards healthy self-esteem. In fact, in the process of adjusting to what it feels like to not overvalue yourself, falsely empower yourself, and therefore offend other people, you will probably feel some pain. This pain is not the same as true low self-esteem. However, you are probably not moving too far down the scale. So she says here, following some exercises for each extreme of the core symptom, low or non-existent self-esteem or arrogance and grandiosity, and the work on the section that best fits your experience or symptom. Some people may need to work on both since they swing back and forth. So in other words, if I have low self-esteem less than, I'm going to focus more there. If I really experience low self-esteem through grandiosity and arrogance, I might need to focus there. And some of us can swing through both. So the first one she has here is that make a decision to esteem yourself and others. So we're really got to get conscious about this process. That quote of Carl Jung's that if we don't make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct our lives and we'll call it fate. So this is about raising consciousness. So make a decision to esteem yourself and others. Building self-esteem from the low or non-existent position begins with making a decision to value yourself and not consider yourself as being less valuable than anyone else. This decision expresses this truth. Just as you are enough. Just because you were born, you are precious. Your preciousness or worth is not up for debate. You were born an amazing creature filled with wonder and spiritual value, and there is no question about whether you are or aren't value in this sense. You are of equal value to everyone else. As you've discovered earlier in the workbook, being out of touch with your own worth is due to the fact that when you were a child, important caregivers in your life did not esteem you in an appropriate way. In neglecting to do that, they were abusive whether they intended to be or not. It's not their fault, it's just a circumstance of life. But now as a mature adult in recovery from the results of that abuse, you can make the decision to honor yourself and treat yourself as though you are precious. This is your absolute right and privilege as a human being. When you make this decision to value yourself, you almost inevitably or invariably start honoring other people as well. As you esteem yourself, you esteem other people, and this change can do wonderful things in your relationships. Your self-esteem allows you to esteem others and to love the members of your family. And as you love you and that very abused, precious little child inside you and quit punishing yourself with carried guilt and shame, you are more sensitive to your own child's being valuable, vulnerable, imperfect, needy, wanting, and immaturity. You are more able to respect those characteristics and stop trying to make them perfect. And as a result, you can feel some worth about their having to be perfect children. One way to affirm yourself is learning to accept compliments from others. And when you are experiencing low self-esteem, you probably have a painful reaction when told that you are wonderful. You probably avoid eye contact, can turn red, can't talk, and can't accept what was said. At times you may cry because it hurts to take the compliment in. These behaviours indicate that you are having a shame attack, an inner sense of worthlessness, and you can't understand why anyone would say that you are wonderful. So it asks you to become really well aware and author a statement about your decision to value yourself, a statement of intention. The next exercise she asks us to do is to make an affirmations list. So she says the second part of developing self-esteem is to make a list of affirmations. Begin by thinking about a time when you were abused as a child or made to feel that some mistake as a child or either as an adult brought massive feelings of shame. Let yourself float back into that old shame-filled reality. As you're feeling the carried shame that tells you you're not good, listen to all the adjectives and nouns to add to a statement of I am in your mind. For example, I am worthless, I am bad, I'm stupid, I'm allowed, I'm empty, I'm awful, I'm a creep, or I'm a jerk. I'm a smelly person, I'm inadequate, whatever your particular set of statements is. Your statements may be very profane. Don't worry about that. Many people's are. Continue until your mind surrenders all the negative adjectives and nouns that you tell yourself. And after your mind has become aware of what you tell yourself when you are less than perfect, write those negative statements down in the column on the left in this workbook fashion. And then we start to, what she asks us to do is to write an affirmation. So then the opposite of each negative noun and adjective you wrote about yourself, write a noun or adjective that will contradict it in an affirming way. And we write these words down as an exercise, whether you believe them or not. And this was really confirmed in the work of Louise Hay, just working on finding affirming statements that counteract the shame messages we got as children. And then she asks us to do something challenging. Make a tape of your own voice reading out only the positive affirmations. And then keep track of it just to see what happens and how it feels. This is where the work of Pete Walker comes in, and his work of shrinking the inner critic, and he certainly supports the work of affirmation. And then if you bring in the mindful self-compassion literature of Kristin, Neff and Christopher Germer, what they also do then is just help us to be kind to ourselves even when we're playing the negative tape. So tonight, I wanted to just sort of share a little bit about how to address the low self-esteem. The second part of this work is about how to recover from grandiosity and arrogance. And she just says that the position of arrogance and grandiosity often comes from comparing yourself to others and coming up better than the other person. Recovery involves stopping this form of judging and comparing, except in the important values relating to murder, rape, incest, physical violence, war, and so on. You must discipline your mind to refute the judging messages with messages about other people having equal value to yourself. So what she suggests in here is to identify, where do I go into better than? And a lot of this is our inheritance. It's what we watched when we were children. And for some of us, we were even separated in this thinking about what we need to do in regards to put ourselves above others. So low self-esteem, less than; low self-esteem, better than. The less than, identify the shame messages, have a statement of intent around being of equal value to others, and then writing out our affirmations and recording those and playing them regularly or journaling them, whatever form works for you. The other one around arrogance is really noting, where do I put myself as better than others? And that separates me just as much, and is driven by that low self-esteem. And being willing to write out a statement of intention that I'm of equal worth as others, and to rein that in when in a reparenting sort of style of relating. So what you want to do is nurture the wounded child, rein in the adapted child as a way of growing your functional adult. That's take 1, MOvember 1. I'll put the details of my MOvember page on the end of this video, and I look forward to day 2.